And good afternoon, everybody. It is after 12. Chair Ray, Vice Chair LaRae, Ranking Member Brent, and members of this fine committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in opposition to House Joint Resolution 9 as it's currently written. My name is Allison Nickolai. I'm a data analyst and Miami County resident. While I strongly support voter ID and the principle that only U.S. citizens should vote, this resolution risks enshrining a double standard into the Ohio Constitution. Strong photo ID requirements for in-person voters, but continued weak verification for mail-in absentee ballots. Ohioans deserve one uniform standard that applies to every ballot, not a constitutional loophole that undermines the confidence that this very resolution seeks to protect. And I would direct you to my written testimony where I do have exhibits that I'm unable to share with you in this particular setting, but it is part of my written testimony. Ohio often claims to be the gold standard for election integrity, yet 5 other states already kind of do better by requiring equal treatment across all voting methods. Arkansas and North Carolina require a photocopy of valid photo ID with their mail-in ballot. What those 2 states don't have is a non-citizen designation or citizenship designation on their photocopies. Ohio has that. Alabama, Kentucky, and New Hampshire also require it with the mail-in absentee or the mail ballot application, not with the ballot, but with the application. Chair Ray, thank you for your more than 20 years of service with Medina County. It's appreciated. But when you left in 2020, we hadn't passed the resolution requiring only U.S. citizens can vote, and the Bureau of Motor Vehicles had not changed the format and the physical appearance of the driver's license that now contains designations or official things you have to look at when you're evaluating a driver's license for whether or not that voter is eligible. That wasn't available to you. I wish it was. But if we were back then, we wouldn't even be having this discussion because you couldn't tell anyway. The mail-in security envelope problem, and you have referenced many times the fact that what's wrong with the mail-in ballot? They have to put either their driver's license number, and this is coming from Ohio Revised Code 3509.05. They have to put either their driver's license number or state ID number. They have to put the last 4 digits of their social security number, or they can, option C is to include a photocopy of the voter ID. So it's already in our Constitution, or it's already in our revised code. The photo ID is an option on the mail-in ballots. Only the photocopy reliably confirms eligibility. And when I'm talking about eligibility, I'm discussing that they are a U.S. citizen, that they are over the age of 18, that they are not a felon, and they are, in fact, a resident of the state of Ohio. Those are the elements of eligibility. Since HB 458 took effect, over 2.18 million absentee ballots have been cast by mail without citizenship or expiration verification. If I tell you what my driver's license is on a piece of paper on a security envelope, can you tell if that license is expired? Can you tell if that license has been surrendered to another state? And that's one of the flaws that we have right now with the current system with verifying after the fact, not when we register. Our boards of elections don't have the resources necessary to even get with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. That all happens through the Secretary of State's office, but they can't independently verify. And I don't think that's fair to any of our boards of elections. Again, there were more than 304,000 valid non-citizen credentials that are in circulation, and that's as of 2025. That was as of March 31st of 2025. Election officials had to receive special training, and that was actually via a court-ordered mandamus that required training for all board election workers to recognize the non-citizen markings, including non-renewable, non-transferable, which is on the front of the license, and then on the back, the non-citizen that's underneath that stripe. But we had to actually require the Board of Election members to even train the poll workers to identify that for in-person voting. And the trouble with the Social Security number 4, in my written testimony, I supplied a copy of what is considered a Social Security number that's been issued by Social Security, but it's with DHS approval, and it's for work only, okay? That Social Security Administration check does not reference citizenship. So if I give you the last 4 of my social on that absentee ballot security envelope, you can't tell if I'm a citizen or not. Nobody can. Only that driver's license provides that level of verification. A photocopy of the driver's license will say non-citizen if they're a non-citizen, or will have non-transferable, non-renewable. That's pretty much the only option they have. Social SSN4, unless you've got access to the Social Security Administration database and the full 9, or we can get our boards of elections to sign up for the SAVE database where they can, in fact, run the SOCH4s. You guys are pretty much blind when it comes to whether or not they can verify the SOCH. The SOCH4 option is primarily unreliable, but even that DHS issued Social Security Administration number, it will pass verification through the HOV system. It's only the last 4. They're not checking for citizenship. They're only checking that it matches the name and potential age. That's it. They do not check citizenship through Social Security. And the actual HOV stands for Help America Voter Verification System, and it was established under HAVA in 2002. It was implemented, I believe, in 2006. It does not prove citizenship as seen in the example that I submitted with my written, and Social Security numbers were issued with DHS approval. This SSN4 checks for Ohio today. And this is, there is an indication, the website, everybody can go there. These are updated weekly or bi-weekly through our Secretary of State. When they can't verify through the driver's license presented on an application, that in fact goes directly to the Social Security Administration, and they kick back whether it's a match, a non-match, a double match, match deceased, matched alive. That's pretty much how that runs. We're at 94.4 rejection. Over 39,000 have been submitted just since January 1st. And up until February 28th, I believe, we were only submitting 100 a week, 100 every submission. All of a sudden, that February 26th or February 28th submission, Secretary of State submitted over 25,000. I don't know why. I have submitted this information to the Secretary of State for more clarification. I don't have an answer back on that yet. They are looking into it. But of course, this information comes out right when we enter an election season. So I understand their hands are tied, they're busy. When the rolls were frozen, the last update that was done through the Social Security Administration was actually April 11th. So that 94.4% failure rate is based on April 11th run. And again, the website is included there. I would encourage everybody to go in there. Do your own snooping, because it's not good. Back in 2024, Ohio was at 62% failure rate, but we had a bunch of states that were way worse than us. I don't know what changed. I don't know how to explain it, but it's unacceptable if we're going to be taking that SOCH4 on an absentee mail-in ballot. And right now, 293 did allow us to we are able to now mark more registrations as provisional, which is great, because then we can prevent somebody who shouldn't be voting from voting if we mark them provisional and we require that they can't have their absentee, but we do want them to vote. We'll vote them provisional. We'll deal with it afterwards, whether it be by an a statement, an attestation statement for eligibility. Whatever we need to do, we'll do to make sure every eligible vote's counted. And again, this is not theoretical. Ohio, the image that I submitted, I just put one column in and I said, tell me the percent rejection. And I sorted that based on percent rejection. Ohio's number 1. Maryland's right behind us at 90% rejection. Nevada is Their third was 73%. Utah has 63%. New York and Nebraska both are in the 50 to 55%. And everybody else is under 50% rejection rate. Now, Texas does run many more than Ohio does, but at the end of the day, is 94% rejection on Social 4s acceptable to you? I don't think it's acceptable to me. We got to figure out what's going on to cause the problem. Again, we allow three things on the absentee ballot, on the security envelope when we send in a ballot. We allow you to write a driver's license number, we allow you to write the last four of your social, or we allow a photocopy of the ID. So it's already there. I say we need, before this joint resolution goes forward, we need to make it equal playing field across. We can't have unequal treatment of the ballot. We really need it to be equal for every voter that wishes to vote in Ohio elections. And again, I would be stink eye if my vote is diluted by somebody who maybe, and somebody did bring it up earlier that somebody's being prosecuted right now and they didn't know they couldn't vote. They were registered without their full consent and full understanding. That's not fair. That is not fair. So we need to do a better job of educating the agencies and the entities that are responsible for assisting our Secretary of State with voter registration. We need to be vigilant with that because nobody needs them to be set up. Nobody needs anybody to be set up as an ineligible elector on a voter roll. Then again, you don't want me to say it, but the practical solution to me is clear. Take care of what's we have now, fix this to encompass all methods of voting, and then let's revisit this after everybody's vote is accounted for in any constitutional amendment. Thank you for your time, and I'll answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the witness? Representative Russo.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you for being here. So I'm trying to fully understand. So one of your premises of the unequal treatment in the constitutional, as you perceive in the constitutional amendment, is you want stronger verification on mail-in ballots to essentially prove citizenship is what you were trying to get, if I understand that correctly. I guess my question for you is, in current law and in the resolution as it is written, it provides, in addition to the use of a driver's license or a state ID, it actually provides for the use of a military ID, a veteran's ID. Well, I'm specifically talking about a military ID, a veteran's ID, and I just want to be very specific here.
Tribal ID, military ID?
Actually, it does not say tribal ID, but it provides for a U.S. military identification card and a National Guard identification card. That was what I was missing. And identification card issued by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs or its successor agency. Now, do you know if those forms of ID specifically inherently indicate if someone is a citizen or non-citizen?
Through the chair to Representative Russo, they do not.
That's correct.
And that is another problem.
That is correct. So my question for you is, if the premise here is ultimately, as I understand your testimony, you were concerned about non-citizens but potentially voting. How do you feel about that language in section B3 that specifies those forms of identification that don't in fact indicate whether or not someone is a citizen? In fact, there are many members of the U.S. military or veterans or National Guard who are not citizens.
Through the chair to Representative Russo, for the overwhelming majority of ballots cast in person showing a photo ID, whether it's early or whether it's on election day, those forms of ID are very, very, very low. Majority of our poll workers are given the manual, they have the information that they need, but no, it does not provide citizenship, in which case Do we now involve the precinct voting location manager to come over to have them fill out an attestation for citizenship? That would be the other option. Have them sign it, and they cast their ballot, show their ID, and off they go. But with a mail-in ballot, first of all, there's no option to put that ID on a mail-in ballot envelope, so it wouldn't be a factor for mail-in balloting.
Thank you. But it is to follow up to the chairman to the witness. But, you know, it's essentially, we are providing for forms of identification in current state law and in this Constitution that don't, in fact, actually prove citizenship, correct?
Through the chair to Representative Russo, we don't take a Social Security card at a voting location. We do take a military ID. We do take that veterans card and the one that you mentioned, the National Guard. We do take those. They are required as government issued. But until those entities do what Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles did and upgrade them where citizenship's included, I think somebody at some point in time may revisit those for eligibility in Ohio.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the witness? Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this non-match data here. So I'm going to explain the way I see it, and then you correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So most times when you're a very young child, your parents go and they get you a Social Security number. Mm-hmm. Social Security number is me, Kevin Miller, as a Social Security number. Mm-hmm. Happens typically when they're young. Then I get ready to vote. I go and I register to vote. And when I do that, I give them my Social Security number. So those are the two systems, if you will, that both include my Social Security number. How are we getting a mismatch? Are we saying one of those is not correct? Typically, when I go and register to vote, I gave them the wrong Social Security number, and then there was a check and it was mismatched. Where does this mismatch come up with? What's the process? I'm just trying to get this straight in my mind.
Through the chair to Representative Miller, you're assuming as a young child you got your Social Security number. That means you are already a U.S. citizen, okay? The ones that are impacted, first, okay, there's also been a purging of the Social Security Administration roster where they've removed over 14.8 million registrations or numbers from that. And I do have a call in to Social Security Administration to try and determine, did you remove them? Are they being investigated? What's going on with this purge of the Social Security Administration data? That's what's causing Ohio to be where we're at. Don't have an answer yet. Happy to follow up when I get one. Now, let's fast forward to, we have somebody who's come into Ohio, a guest in Ohio, and they are not a U.S. citizen. They're either here for school, for work, for whatever. Now, they go, and in order to get a job, they need to have the I-9, so they apply, and they are issued a Social Security number. And it looks exactly like ours. It can also be mistaken for the I-10 number. And that is another thing. The I-10 number starts with a 9. Social Security numbers do not start with a 9, but they are both 9 digits long. So you could technically take the last 4 of an I-10, pop it on a voter registration form, and nobody would know. It would show up you're registered, but you would be a BMV SSA non-match. But you're still on the voter roll, okay? Now, back to what you were saying about how does that happen and what is happening now to cause this. When you put your Soch-4 on a voter registration form, say you've never registered to vote before, you put your Soch-4 on a voter registration form, you do not put your driver's license number. Well, that goes to Social Security, or that goes actually to the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections does what they do, and they put whatever you put on that form goes into their computer system. I don't think they give you the option to put both. It says one or, and there's a checkbox on the registration form. Or you used to be able to write none in box 10. Now the new form has a checkbox. I don't have either a driver's license or a Soch. I don't have either one. So basically, what happens at that point, it's out of our Board of Elections' hands. It goes to the Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State goes, well, I don't have any driver's license information, so I'm going to kick it over to SSA. SSA is going to come back to me with the name that they've got, and if it's a match to a record they've got with the same name in the same state, because that Social Security number, they know where you're at state-wise, okay? Now, if it comes back through the BMV, and the BMV says, oh, yeah, it's John Jones, he lives at such and such, and if they have a driver's license number that can be attached to that Social 4 that was provided, they'll send it back to the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections, voila, has a complete voter record for that John Jones. Am I making sense, or have I lost you?
Follow up? Where does the total transaction number come from?
That total, through the chair to Representative Miller, that total transaction number comes from all those applications that came into the Board of Elections that only use the last 4 of SOCH and can't do anything else with it. They went to the BMV says, I can't do anything. Or I'm sorry, they went to the Secretary of State. Secretary of State sends it to the BMV. BMV says, we can't do anything. They kick it to SSA for verification.
I think I'm up to speed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Representative Brent.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you for coming here again. Last time you were here was for House Bill 577, which tends to be the rolling theme of our past couple witnesses, and you were here before because you want to add photo ID for vote by mail. You mentioned that again in this, even though we're talking about this resolution, but I see you're mentioning House Bill 57. It sounds like you guys are a huge supporter of the representative from House District 98. But my question to you, because you brought up concerns about vote by mail and people not knowing citizenship based off of Social Security information. So you're coming to us before as the expert when it comes to all of this, particularly when anybody who gets there does voter registration, the Secretary of State automatically has to send that information to go through the SAVE, which is the Systemic Alien Verification for Entitlement. Because I want to say the whole thing because it's a grandma sitting at home who does not know what the SAVE database is. Since we talk about the SAVE Act, this is the SAVE database, which is managed by the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services. So I just want to, for those at home, this is different than the SAVE Act. My question is, after we've given all this preface, your concerns to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, your concern seems to be on a federal level because our systems of how we check stuff is based off of a federal system, not so much just here within our state. So if we're using the federal tools that are mandated by all of us to utilize, why haven't you gone to Congress and say, I don't like the effectiveness of this system that we have to use to verify people's voter registration within the state of Ohio, since we are mandated to have to use that to verify if somebody's a citizen or not?
Through the chair to Representative Brent, thank you for your question. I was hoping somebody would ask me this. First of all, our Secretary of State did not have access to the SAVE database until August of 2024. That mandated training on non-citizen verification came out in, I believe, June of 2024. So all poll workers were to be trained on non-citizen ID. We had already been through 3 elections without it. So we don't know. Do we know the accuracy of the ballots in the other 3? I'm just going to say, no, we don't. But we sure made one heck of an effort for 2024. But we did not have that tool. The SAVE database prior to June of 2025 was not able to process the last 4 of a SOCH. 3 important things happened with that SAVE database that our Secretary of State has access to, and I would really love it if every Board of Elections would pick 1 member and sign up for their own account, because 50% of all of our applications for registration come in outside of the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. We don't have AVR. So the Board of Elections gets handed 50%, but their hands are tied. They have no way to verify what they're looking at. They can't run a driver's license. They can't run a last four of a SOCH. They can just put it in a system and send it up to the SOS to do that for you, okay? Now, back to what you were saying, the fact that the SAVE database is so new, and we literally, it used to be $2, it was over $2 per transaction. You could only run one at a time. Medina County, refresh my memory, roughly 156,000 registered voters?
Almost 180 now.
100, okay, but I'm close, right? All right, let's do the math. If I had to run my entire Medina County voter roll of 180,000 registered voters through SAVE at $2.10, you want to talk about blowing a county's budget? They wouldn't do it. But it's free. They can batch upload. They don't have to do onesie-twosies. They can batch upload those registrations, okay? And they can be run all at one time, and you would get the accurate information on citizenship for those that did only give you the last four of a SOCH. The Social Security Administration and the HAVV can't do that. That's not part of what they do. The SAVE database that we're referring to is a function of USCIS, which is Customs and Immigration.
I said that.
Any other questions? I thank you so much for coming today, but I'm just going to point out a lot of what you've put in here, at least regarding me, was totally incorrect. So I guess when you start out giving some incorrect information, and I'm looking at this, I guess I'm not sure where you got a lot of it. Have you ever worked as a poll worker?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Where did you work as a poll worker?
I've worked in, it's Miami County.
Miami County?
Miami County. Board of Elections person is Laura Bruns. Janelle, I don't remember Janelle's last name, is the trainer. And I was stationed at 2 different polling locations over the course of 4 elections.
So principally in Miami County?
Yeah, you have to work where you live. You can't.
Well, I was just curious because you've presented some information, like I said, that at least in regards to myself is incorrect. So I'm looking at this
I
wondering where you're
apologize.
getting any of this, so.
I apologize. I looked up how long you have been involved with elections. And I know that you were a Board of Elections member, but it did also state that you did provide service as a Board of Elections employee prior to being a Board of Elections member. Okay, then I 100% apologize for the incorrect information.
Any other questions for the witness? Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.